Rashid Al Mansouri, the tech billionaire everyone's been trying to impress all evening, suddenly grabs his chest. His face turns pale as marble. He stumbles backward, knocking over a crystal glass that shatters across the marble floor. The room freezes. This man, worth over $3 billion, drops to one knee, gasping for air. And then, in perfect Arabic, he cries out desperately, "My medication? The blue bottle? Please, I'm dying." Complete silence. 30 of the most powerful people in New York, and not one of them understands a word he just said. They stand there like statues, watching a man potentially die right in front of them, completely helpless. Some pull out their phones, not to call for help, but to make sure they're not being filmed. But then, from the back of the room, a voice responds in fluent Arabic. "Sir, stay calm. I know where your medication is. I'll get it right now." Every head in that room turns toward the voice, and their jaws drop. Because the person who just understood their billionaire host, the person who might have just saved his life, is wearing a simple black uniform. She's the woman they've been treating as invisible furniture all evening. The woman they assumed was just there to refill their champagne glasses. Her name is Amara, and what these people don't know is they've been completely wrong about who she really is. If you're already hooked and want to see how this incredible story unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me, from where are you watching us in the comment section, because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. But let me take you back 6 hours earlier to a cramped studio apartment in Queens, where Amara is getting ready for what she thinks will be just another night of being invisible. She stands in front of a cracked mirror, adjusting the black uniform that's become like a costume she wears to survive. Her hands are steady, but her eyes tell a different story. These are hands that once held PhD diplomas, that once commanded university lecture halls filled with eager students. These are hands that once signed international peace treaties as a translator for the United Nations. Amara speaks 7 languages fluently: Arabic, French, English, Spanish, German, Italian, and Armenian. She has a PhD in international relations from the American University of Beirut and spent 15 years as a linguistics professor before her world fell apart. See, Amara isn't from Queens originally. She's from Lebanon, where she lived a completely different life before the economic collapse destroyed everything she'd built. When the banks failed and her university closed, when her savings became worthless overnight and her country descended into chaos, she had to make an impossible choice: stay and watch her 2 young children starve, or flee to America with nothing but the clothes on their backs. So she came to New York, a woman with multiple degrees and decades of experience, only to discover that none of that mattered if you don't have strong connections, if you don't have money, if your accent marks you as an outsider. The only work she could find was cleaning houses for wealthy families who looked right through her, like she was part of the furniture. Now she works 3 jobs just to keep her small apartment, with the hope time will come when everything will be perfect again. Days cleaning penthouses for people who make more in an hour than she makes in a year. Evenings tutoring rich kids whose parents pay her barely enough to cover her subway fare. And nights like tonight, serving at exclusive events where she's surrounded by enough wealth to solve her problems forever, but completely invisible to the people who could help her. As she buttons up her uniform, Amara catches sight of her diplomas, framed and hanging on the wall next to her children's drawings, a reminder of who she used to be, and a promise of who she might become again someday. Meanwhile, across town in that same penthouse where our story began, Rashid Al Mansouri is having his own crisis of identity. He's staring out at the Manhattan skyline, but his mind is back in the mountains of Morocco, in the tiny village where he grew up with nothing. Rashid's story sounds like the American dream, but it feels more like a beautiful prison. He came to America with $500 and a computer programming book written in broken English. He slept on couches, worked 3 jobs while going to school, and built his tech company from his dorm room. Now, 30 years later, his software runs on half the smartphones in the world. But success came with a price. To fit into American high society, to get the investors and contracts he needed, Rashid learned to hide his background. He married Victoria, a socialite from old money who gave him access to the circles he needed to grow his business. But Victoria sees his Moroccan heritage as something embarrassing, something to be managed and minimized. So tonight, surrounded by his wife's friends, Rashid feels more alone than he did when he was actually poor. These people tolerate him because of his money, but he knows what they really think. He's heard the whispered comments, the jokes about his accent when he gets emotional, the way they change the subject when he mentions Morocco. Speaking of Victoria, she's in the master bedroom, putting on diamond earrings that cost more than most people's cars. But she's not thinking about how beautiful she looks. She's thinking about damage control. See, Victoria married Rashid for his money, but she spent their entire marriage trying to make him seem less foreign, less different, more palatable to her social circle. Tonight's charity gala is crucial for her. It's her chance to prove to everyone that she belongs in their world, that her marriage to an immigrant was strategic, not desperate. She's planned every detail perfectly, from the menu to the guest list, all designed to show that she's still one of them, despite her husband's background. Then there's Jonathan Blackstone, old money royalty, whose family has been rich since before the Civil War. Jonathan doesn't hate Rashid exactly, but he sees him as an outsider who bought his way into their world. He tolerates Rashid for business reasons, but makes subtle comments designed to remind everyone that some people are born to wealth while others just stumble into it. Catherine Wells runs the charity they're supposedly supporting tonight. But for her, these events aren't about helping people. They're about networking, about being seen with the right people, about maintaining her position in society's hierarchy. She's the kind of person who throws lavish parties to raise money for homeless shelters, while spending more on flowers than most people spend on rent. And finally, there's Dr. Harrison Mitchell, the cardiologist who was invited because wealthy people love having doctors at their parties. It makes them feel important and protected. But Dr. Mitchell is more interested in potential donors for his private practice than in actually helping anyone who might need medical attention. So you have all these people gathered in this incredible penthouse, each one playing a role, each one hiding their true motivations. And into this world of fake smiles and hidden agendas walks Amara, carrying trays of champagne for people who wouldn't spit on her if she was on fire. What happens when these worlds collide? Let me tell you, the answer will shock you more than anything you've ever seen. Now here's where things get absolutely insane. Remember Rashid, our billionaire who's been hiding his true identity all evening? Well, the stress of pretending to be someone he's not is literally killing him. As he mingles with Victoria's friends, listening to their subtle jabs about immigrants and foreign accents, his chest starts tightening. His heart condition, triggered by years of suppressing who he really is, flares up with a vengeance. The attack hits him like a freight train. One moment he's nodding politely at Jonathan's story about his yacht, the next he's gasping for air, his vision blurring. And here's the cruel irony. Surrounded by 30 of the most powerful people in America, the only words that can save him are in Arabic, the language he's been taught to be ashamed of. The guests? They're absolutely useless. Victoria screams and drops her wine glass. Jonathan backs away, like Rashid has something contagious. Catherine pulls out her phone, but instead of calling 911, she's checking if anyone's filming this potential scandal. These people who claim to care about charity and helping others can't even help one person right in front of them. But Amara? She moves like lightning. While everyone else is frozen in panic, she's already assessing his symptoms. She sees the way he's clutching his chest, the particular shade his lips are turning, the specific pattern of his breathing. This isn't just someone who knows first aid. This is someone who's seen this exact condition before. She rushes to his study, knowing exactly where wealthy men like Rashid keep their emergency medications. She finds the blue bottle, nitroglycerin tablets, and hurries back. While the guests are still standing around like expensive mannequins, Amara kneels beside Rashid and speaks to him in perfect, fluent Arabic. "Sir, you're having an episode. I need you to put this under your tongue and breathe slowly with me. You're going to be okay." Rashid's eyes lock onto hers, and for the first time all evening, he feels truly seen. Not as a billionaire, not as an immigrant trying to fit in, but as a human being who needs help. As Amara guides him through breathing exercises in his native language, his heart rate begins to stabilize. But here's where this story takes a disgusting turn that will make your blood boil. The moment Rashid starts breathing normally, Victoria swoops in like a vulture. She doesn't thank Amara. She doesn't acknowledge that this woman just saved her husband's life. Instead, she's mortified that the help got involved in front of her friends. "Thank you, that will be all," Victoria says dismissively, like Amara just refilled a water glass instead of preventing a medical emergency. But it gets worse. Jonathan, this trust fund baby who's never worked a real day in his life, makes this absolutely vile comment. "How convenient that you had help who just happened to understand gibberish." Gibberish. He called Arabic, one of the world's most ancient and beautiful languages, gibberish. Amara pretends not to hear, but her hands shake slightly as she steps back into the shadows. These people have no idea they just insulted someone who speaks more languages than most of them have brain cells. The whispers start immediately. "Did you see how she jumped right in?" one guest murmurs. "The help these days really don't know their boundaries," another responds. Catherine, the charity queen, suggests loudly enough for Amara to hear. "Rashid should really hire more appropriate staff who understand their place." Their place, as if saving a human life has a social hierarchy. Amara retreats to the corner, invisible once again, watching these people return to their champagne and small talk like nothing happened. Like a man didn't almost die. Like she didn't just perform a miracle. 20 minutes later, Dr. Mitchell finally shows up, fashionably late because he was at another social event. He takes one look at Rashid, who's now sitting comfortably thanks to Amara's quick thinking, and immediately assumes he's the hero of the story. "Looks like I got here just in time," Dr. Mitchell announces proudly. "Classic angina episode. Good thing I was here to handle the situation." Handle the situation? This man wasn't even in the building when Rashid collapsed. But here's the part that will make you want to throw something at your screen. The guests start praising Dr. Mitchell like he's some kind of medical genius. "Thank goodness you were here, doctor. What would we have done without you? You're such a lifesaver." Meanwhile, Amara is refilling their drinks, completely ignored, completely invisible, despite being the actual person who saved Rashid's life. She watches from the corner as Dr. Mitchell basks in credit for her actions, and you can see the resignation in her eyes. This is her life, being extraordinary and being invisible at the same time. Hours pass. The guests move on to dinner, then speeches, then dancing, all while Amara continues serving, continues being invisible. But Rashid hasn't forgotten what happened. Later that evening, after the crowd thins out, he seeks her out in the kitchen. "Excuse me," he says quietly in Arabic. "I wanted to thank you properly for what you did tonight." Amara looks up, surprised. In all her years of working for wealthy families, none of them had ever sought her out just to say thank you. "You saved my life," Rashid continues. "But more than that, you spoke to me in my language when I needed it most. How do you know Arabic so well?" And that's when everything changes. Amara, thinking she's just making polite conversation with her employer's husband, begins to tell her story. She mentions her university background, her PhD, her years as a professor and UN translator. Rashid's jaw drops. This woman, this person, his wife's friends treated like furniture, is more qualified than half the people at tonight's party. She's been invisible to people she could run circles around intellectually. "You have a PhD in international relations?" Rashid asks in disbelief. "And 15 years of diplomatic experience," Amara adds quietly. "But here, none of that matters. I'm just grateful to have work." Rashid is processing this bombshell when Amara's phone buzzes. She glances at it, and her face goes white as a sheet. "I'm sorry, I have to take this," she whispers, stepping away. "What Rashid overhears next will break your heart and change everything." "What do you mean the insurance won't cover it?" Amara's voice is shaking. She's 8 years old. "Yes, I understand it's considered experimental, but it's her only chance. $50,000 up front? By when?" Amara sinks into a chair, and for the first time all evening, this incredibly strong woman breaks down. Her daughter, her baby girl, needs emergency heart surgery, the same kind of heart condition that almost killed Rashid tonight. But unlike Rashid, Amara doesn't have access to the best doctors, the best treatments, the luxury of immediate care. She's been saving for years, working 3 jobs, sacrificing everything, and she's still $30,000 short. The hospital won't even schedule the surgery without full payment up front. Rashid watches this brilliant, accomplished woman sobbing quietly in his kitchen, and suddenly he's 8 years old again, back in the mountains of Morocco, watching his own mother die, because his family couldn't afford the medication that would have saved her life. His mother had the same heart condition, the same desperate need for surgery. But they were poor immigrants in a foreign country, and the hospitals turned them away. Rashid built his entire fortune on the promise that no one he cared about would ever die for lack of money again. Without saying a word, Rashid steps into the hallway and makes a phone call. "This is Rashid Al-Mansouri. I need you to call Presbyterian Hospital immediately. There's a little girl who needs heart surgery. Yes, cover everything. No, she doesn't need to know who paid for it. Just tell them it's been taken care of." But as he hangs up, Rashid realizes something. He spent years hiding who he really is, pretending to be ashamed of his background, letting people like Jonathan make jokes about his heritage. Meanwhile, this woman has maintained her dignity despite being treated like she's worthless. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to show these people who they really are. Back in the main room, the guests have moved on to the charity auction portion of the evening. Dr. Mitchell is holding court, telling an increasingly exaggerated story about his heroic medical intervention earlier. "You should have seen the panic on everyone's faces," Dr. Mitchell boasts. "But years of medical training kicked in. I immediately diagnosed the cardiac episode and administered the proper treatment. Really, it was textbook emergency medicine." The guests are eating it up. "So brave. Such quick thinking. We're so lucky you were there." Jonathan raises his glass. "Here's to Dr. Mitchell, who saved our host from one of those exotic medical episodes immigrants are prone to." The room erupts in laughter. Victoria, desperate to distance herself from her husband's heritage, laughs the loudest. That's when Rashid takes the microphone. The room falls silent as this billionaire, this man they've been tolerating for his money, steps onto the small stage where the charity speeches were given. "Good evening, everyone," Rashid begins. "I want to talk to you about something very important. About seeing people for who they really are." Victoria's face goes pale. She knows that tone. Her husband is about to do something that will embarrass her in front of everyone who matters. "Earlier tonight, I had a medical emergency, and Dr. Mitchell here has been telling a wonderful story about how he saved my life." Dr. Mitchell preens, expecting more praise. But that's not what happened. The room goes dead quiet. "When I collapsed, Dr. Mitchell wasn't even here yet. When I was gasping for breath, calling out in Arabic for someone to help me, 30 of the most powerful people in New York stood frozen, unable to understand a word I was saying." Victoria tries to signal him to stop, but Rashid is just getting started. "The person who saved my life tonight was not a doctor. She was not one of our esteemed guests. She was the woman you've all been treating as invisible furniture all evening." Every head turns toward Amara, who's standing in the corner holding a tray of glasses, looking absolutely mortified. "Amara, could you please come here?" Amara shakes her head slightly, terrified, but Rashid's eyes are kind but insistent. As she walks toward the front of the room, Rashid continues, "This woman diagnosed my condition faster than any doctor. She knew exactly which medication I needed and where to find it. She spoke to me in perfect Arabic, calming me down when I thought I was dying. She saved my life." The guests are shifting uncomfortably now, remembering their dismissive comments, their whispered jokes about boundaries and knowing one's place. "But here's what none of you know," Rashid's voice rises. "The woman you've been treating like she's beneath you has a PhD in international relations from the American University of Beirut. She spent 15 years as a linguistics professor. She's fluent in 7 languages and worked as a translator for the United Nations, helping negotiate peace treaties that probably prevented wars." Jaws are dropping around the room. Catherine looks like she's going to faint. This woman has accomplished more in her field than most of you have in your entire lives. She's more qualified to run international businesses than half the people in this room, And yet, you treated her like furniture because she was wearing a uniform. The silence is deafening. So I have an announcement to make. Amara, I would like to offer you the position of Vice President of International Relations at my company, effective immediately. Your starting salary will be $300,000, plus full benefits, plus stock options. The room explodes in shocked murmurs. Victoria looks like she might actually die of embarrassment. Jonathan's mouth is hanging open like a broken gate. But Rashid isn't finished. Oh, and one more thing. Your daughter's surgery has been fully paid for. She'll receive the best cardiac care in the country, and you'll never have to worry about medical bills again. Amara bursts into tears, but this time they're tears of joy, of relief, of vindication. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or what job you had? Share your story in the comments below, because what happens next will show these snobs exactly what karma looks like. The guests sit in stunned silence, finally understanding that the woman they dismissed as help was actually more accomplished than any of them. And Rashid? He's finally free to be exactly who he is, no longer hiding his heritage or apologizing for his success. The silence in that room is absolutely deafening. You could hear a pin drop as 30 of New York's elite try to process what just happened. The woman they treated like invisible furniture is standing there, tears streaming down her face, having just been offered a $300,000 job and her daughter's life saved in front of everyone who dismissed her. Victoria's face has gone from pale to bright red. This is her worst nightmare come true. Her husband just publicly embarrassed her in front of everyone who matters in her social circle. She spent years carefully crafting an image, distancing herself from Rashid's heritage, and in one moment, he's destroyed everything she's built. Without saying a word, Victoria grabs her purse and storms toward the exit. Her designer heels click furiously against the marble floor as she pushes past stunned guests. She doesn't even look back at her husband. In her mind, Rashid just chose some maid over his own wife's reputation. The door slams behind her so hard that the crystal chandelier actually trembles. Jonathan Blackstone, this old money aristocrat who called Arabic gibberish just an hour ago, suddenly finds his champagne glass fascinating. He can't make eye contact with anyone, especially not Amara. This man who's never been wrong about anything in his privileged life just discovered he spent the evening insulting someone more qualified than he'll ever be. Well, would you look at the time? Jonathan mutters, practically running toward the coat check. Early morning tomorrow, you know how it is. Catherine Wells is right behind him, making up some ridiculous excuse about a family emergency. These people who were so comfortable making jokes about boundaries and knowing one's place suddenly can't get out of there fast enough. Dr. Mitchell? Oh, this is the most pathetic part. This man who spent the entire evening bragging about his heroic medical intervention, taking credit for saving Rashid's life, quietly slinks toward the back exit. He can't even face the room after being exposed as a fraud. His medical reputation just took a hit he'll never recover from. But here's the beautiful part that will restore your faith in humanity. As the cowards flee, something incredible happens. The remaining guests, the ones with actual character, start approaching Amara with genuine respect. They're apologizing for not speaking up earlier, congratulating her on her new position, asking about her background with real interest for the first time all evening. One woman admits she had no idea about Amara's qualifications and asks for her business card. A tech entrepreneur wants to discuss potential partnerships with Rashid's company. These people are finally seeing Amara as she truly is, brilliant, accomplished, and deserving of respect. Amara stands there, still in her simple black uniform, but everything has changed. She's no longer invisible. She's no longer just the help. She's a vice president, a mother whose daughter will live, a woman whose worth has finally been recognized. Now let me fast forward 6 months, because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. 42nd floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. Corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The nameplate on the massive mahogany desk reads, Dr. Amara Khalil, Vice President of International Relations. Those diplomas that used to hang in her tiny Queens apartment? They're now prominently displayed on the wall behind her desk, along with certifications in 7 languages and photos from international business summits. Amara is on a video call with executives in Tokyo, switching effortlessly between English and Japanese, negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal that will expand Rashid's company into Asian markets. She's wearing a tailored power suit that costs more than she used to make in 3 months, but she carries herself with the same dignity she had when she was serving champagne. Her children? They're thriving in one of Manhattan's most prestigious private schools. Her daughter's heart surgery was completely successful, and she's now a healthy, happy 8-year-old who tells everyone her mom is a superhero who speaks magic languages. Her son is excelling in advanced mathematics and dreams of following his mother into international business. Every morning, Amara drops them off at school in the company car Rashid insisted she have, then heads to her corner office where she's revolutionizing how the company handles global expansion. In 6 months, she's opened offices in 4 countries and increased international revenue by 40%. She's not just good at her job, she's exceptional. There's a knock on her office door, and Rashid walks in carrying 2 cups of Arabic coffee, just like they used to drink in Morocco and Lebanon. "Good morning," he says in Arabic. "How did the Tokyo meeting go?" "Excellent," Amara responds, in perfect Arabic. "We finalized the partnership. Your company will be operational in Japan within 3 months." They sit comfortably, 2 immigrants who made it in America, speaking the language they were once made to feel ashamed of, in an office that overlooks the city that tried to make them invisible. "You know," Rashid says, "Victoria filed for divorce last month. She said she couldn't be married to someone who embarrassed her in front of her friends." "I'm sorry," Amara replies genuinely. "Don't be," Rashid smiles. "I realized that night that I'd rather be authentically myself and alone than fake and married to someone who was ashamed of who I am. Besides, I'm not really alone, am I? I have the best VP in the business." They laugh. These 2 people who found each other in a moment of crisis and built something beautiful from it. As Rashid leaves her office, Amara turns back to her computer but catches her reflection in the window. She thinks back to that night 6 months ago, when she was invisible, when she saved a man's life and was dismissed like she didn't matter. In her own voice, thinking back on that transformative night, Amara reflects. They saw a maid. He saw a human being. Sometimes the difference between invisible and invaluable is just one person willing to really see you. She looks at her nameplate, at her diplomas, at the photos of her children on her desk, and smiles. The camera slowly pans across her office, showing the multiple language certifications on her wall, the international business awards she's already won, the respect she's earned not through charity or pity, but through pure excellence. The screen fades to black, and these words appear. Never underestimate the person serving you. They might be more qualified for your job than you are. This story isn't just about one woman's transformation. It's about the countless brilliant people who are invisible in plain sight, working jobs that don't reflect their abilities, dismissed because of what they wear or how they look or where they come from. It's about the power of one person choosing to see beyond appearances, beyond assumptions, beyond prejudice. Amara went from serving champagne to running international operations, from being invisible to being invaluable, all because one person took the time to really see her. Victoria? She's still throwing charity galas, but now everyone whispers about how she lost her billionaire husband because she was too embarrassed by his generosity and authenticity. Jonathan and Catherine? They avoid any events where they might run into Amara, who's now more successful and respected than they ever were. Dr. Mitchell? His reputation never recovered from that night when he was exposed as a fraud. But Amara? She's living proof that your current circumstances don't define your potential. That being underestimated can be the greatest gift, because it means you have nowhere to go but up. That sometimes the most qualified person in the room is the one everyone's ignoring. The next time you encounter someone in a service job, remember Amara. Remember that the person taking your order, cleaning your office, or serving your food might have a PhD. They might speak 5 languages. They might be more accomplished than you could ever imagine. Treat them with respect. See them as human beings. Because you never know when you might be dismissing someone who could change your life, or when you might be the person who finally sees their true worth. That's the real magic of this story. Not the transformation itself, but the reminder that extraordinary people are everywhere, waiting for someone to notice, someone to care, someone to see beyond the surface. In a world that often makes people invisible, be the person who helps them shine. If you're moved by this story same way I was, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share and like, because many need to listen to this and find courage when life hit harder.